First of all, thank you guys for coming. Some of you I saw last night at Night Out, and hopefully you enjoyed the hot dogs, because I enjoyed it when I got done. Although Scott and I need to work a little bit more on getting ahead prepared, because our mistake was we should have started cooking at 3:30. Right. So, great event. So tonight, the big thing that we're talking about is the budget. And to me, the budget is probably one of the most important things the council does, because that really sets the priorities of whatever it's going to be. This will be the first time that I am mayor doing the budget. So already my staff's telling me that I'm doing it a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but I only know one way of doing it. So what we've done, we've already taken feedback from the council on what they would like to have, and we're going to get more feedback from the council. We've been talking to our boards of what they would like to have. Citizens, meetings like this, talking to you of what you would like to see. Next week, I spend the entire week talking to the different departments of what they would like to have. And I already know, because of everyone I've talked to, there's not enough money that probably all of Grace Harbor has to pay for everything that everyone wants to have. So then that becomes the whole process of what are the priorities. So the council, and Eric Noble will be here, running a little bit late, so he'll be here a little bit later. But I thought tonight it would be a good thing for listen to you, listen to our two council members of what their thoughts are, and of course each council member has their different ideas, different priorities. I know as mayor, one of the things I will be struggling with is I'm really not a raise tax guy. I mean, that in my business, I hate writing the checks to the state and the federal for what we need to do, and but that's what funds everything. But I also see there's needs within the city that we need to address. And so it's trying to balance all that. The good thing is that I'll have 7 council members that will help keep me in check of whatever I want to do. So I look at the budget, it's kind of like this, I think if you do time management, they talk about you need to focus on the big rocks. So there's some big rocks that we have to focus on, because obviously we need police, fire, infrastructure, those are the type of things that you got to put in. Then you can start putting in whatever space you have left over, you can put on the other things. But we have some big things that unfortunately we might not know until after actually done with the budget, because we still have what are we going to do with the Waterways or the EMS rates, which will impact it, because that will be a revenue that comes in. The police stations out there, we have requirements of, are we going to add fire and police? I mean, there's just a lot of things in there. So that's kind of this, all I can tell you is from a budgeting point of view, moving forward, I as the mayor cannot tell you what the budget looks like right now, because we're gathering the information. The only thing that I've done is to sit down and we have figured out revenues of what we're projecting. And the revenues that we're projecting, we are projecting on the items that will impact it, that are sales, that would be like sales tax and items like that we're projecting a decrease. The same thing with Delta. And so that's the assumption, is it's better to under-project your revenues than over-project and then spend all the money. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott. You can have a few comments, and we can hopefully, Eric will be here, and then Frank and Eric can talk about their thoughts.
All right, and if I may be having the same issue with my mic, so I might borrow yours. Yeah, so as the mayor said, we're dependent. The budget is dependent on a number of factors, and one is obviously we have 7 council members that have different and sort of competing priorities, and then you have our unions, fire and Teamsters or police and clerical unions that have their own priorities. Then we have city projects that we are trying to get done, and we have a lot of those. And to me, it sort of feels very different than we did this a few years ago, because our fiscal, we're in a good place financially, but it just seems like the city is changing. It's gone from that phase where, 3 years ago it felt somewhat smaller to me, and it feels much like it's just growing at a larger rate. Like the population's increasing, the demands sort of for services are increasing, and the town is changing. And in a lot of ways it's for the better. There's been a lot of new amenities that are around full time. I've noticed in a lot of our businesses and restaurants no longer have to just absolutely make it or break it during that peak season, because that was always the key. And there's more year-round residents. A lot of the homes are now occupied. They're not secondary homes or summer homes. So just things in the city are changing. But with that growth always comes, of course, a number of challenges. And I don't have a lot to say on some of those challenges. I can't say what council's going to do. But one of the things we can do is when we have large projects, try to either get funding sources outside the city that bring us revenue, to find grant partners and that. And so I just wanted to kind of clear up a few things that are happening on these big projects in the city so that citizens would know more about them. And the first misconception is almost $11 million was allocated to repair the jetty, but that is not the city doing that. So that is money that we have asked our congressional, Derek Helmer was great. We had a conversation with him. We've been telling them and the port for years that this needs to be done. Derek was able to get that allocation for us, but that is being done by the Army Corps of Engineers. So that is not a city project at all. It's actually too big for a city project. It's too complicated for the city's engineering department, and we don't have jurisdiction over it anyway. So that work is set to begin, but that's not city work. The High Dune Trail, we're getting closer and closer to breaking ground on that project. It has a budgeted amount of almost $1.3 million, let's call it that. So you hear that number, wow, $1.3 million, that's a big number, and it is, but almost $900,000 of that is not coming from the city. It's from the Cowlitz-Waukegan Council of Governments. You've got another almost $150,000 that's coming from the Department of Commerce. So the city's share is about $264,000. So it's a number, but we're getting an enormous amenity that's going to benefit both the citizens of Ocean Shores and our tourism industry for not an extraordinarily large contribution on our part. And for one, it's my favorite project. If you ever go to Long Beach, and I mean, there are lots of people who go to Long Beach and stay the weekend just because of that trail. So it will also be a boon for our hotel industry as well, and it will help that out. We have the vertical evacuation structure, which obviously is very costly. FEMA recognizes it's costly. FEMA's ultimate goal at the end of this is they want over 101 of them along the Washington coast. And if Ocean Shores can't afford it, and we can't do it, they're not going to get more than 3 or 4. So they're doing everything they can to make this work for us. As it stands right now, it's about a $5 million project. FEMA is already contributed, they're going to contribute $3.5 million. And the Department of Commerce is going to contribute another $500,000. So that would put the city portion at $700,000, which is not a small amount of money by any means, but it's about 7% of the overall. Oh no, sorry, that's not right. It's about 14% of the overall share. Some of the other projects we're working on, these are the Marine View Drive Bay erosion study that we're in the process of doing. That's entirely FEMA. $150,000 in FEMA money. They're paying for all of it, nothing by the citizens. The Shoreline Master Plan update, that's through Washington State, $16,800. The one that you've heard about that even to me sounds over the top, the airport obstruction removal. The FAA it's a $737,000 project to remove all the trees and the vegetation and things that might obstruct the airport. But the FAA is paying $663,000 of that money. With the new ambulance for our EMS services, that's about $250,000, and FEMA is contributing about $220,000 of that. So the city's matching portion is actually, when it's all said and done, only about $11,000 for that. And then finally, the Point Brown Crosswalk, an expensive number. Whenever you hear it, whenever you read it, $230,000 to put down a crosswalk. It seems strange because we could have done it in the 1940s with some paint and some other materials. It's the number one reason cities get sued. The number one reason. In Washington State, we have a 1% liability law. If the city is deemed even 1% at fault, we are a party to that. We can be a party to that lawsuit. So they want to make sure they do these engineering studies and mark them well, and you want the engineer to stamp off and sign on it. So it removes some of that legal liability from the city, and we make sure it's a safe project. So that's why you're paying for a $230,000 crosswalk, but of that, the Washington State Department of Transportation is paying about $182,000 of it. So it'll be a 21% cost to the city, roughly. So my job as a city administrator is, like I said, I can't determine council priorities. I can't determine what the unions bring to me, but I'll do everything I can to try to keep costs down for taxpayers that are sitting in this room. And anytime we can get grants, anytime we can get additional money, that's what we're going to try to do. And with the police station too, that will actually be said, though we're asking for the full amount. We have had conversations with the representatives. There's a possibility of getting up to $1 million. It won't be more, but $1 million for capital funds. So that's really all I wanted to tell you tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Frank? Oh, this is not working. Well, Frank, why don't you go next?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I don't know how good this is working, but anyway, like John mentioned, we haven't heard from our department heads, we haven't heard from our committees, so there's a lot of things still out there that we don't know how we want to figure all this out. But I mean, I can tell you, priorities to me, I think number one is fresh waterways. I'm really happy that we got some money put away. Eric brought that up, for a company to come in and assess our waterways and give us a plan on what we need to do to clean it up. That's super important. The waterways, when you got to put signs out all the time that the water is not good and healthy to be swimming in, or have your animals take a drink out of it or any of that, that's really bad. And I'm in favor, and I've mentioned this to Eric and a couple other council members, I'm in favor of hiring a couple of people to implement this plan that we get from this economic or ecological outfit. I'm hoping that we get, I'm sure this is the direction we're going in, but we want to get a company that's done this type of work before. They've cleaned up lakes and that kind of stuff, and have them come and give us a plan and move forward on it. So for the $160,000 that we were talking about for a manager, we could get a couple of workers for that price, and they could go out and implement it, and we could get some work done. So I think that's important. The Oi Hut ditch, I'd like to see us get started on that, especially at least partial way up, whatever we can afford to, we can put money on it, because there's a great parking lot that would really help out the city and the businesses right behind Doolittle's go-kart and his ice cream shop. And if we could get enough of that put out there so he could drive, people could drive in there and park, I think that'd be really a great thing to do for that. We've talked about dog parks for a million years. I don't know what the parks are going to come to us and talk to us about, but I'm hoping that that's one of the items on there. And I think there's something else that I was thinking of, but I don't know if I can remember it. Let's see. Oh, one of the things that I mentioned at the last meeting, I think it was, but the bike trail, walking trail along Point Brown, I'd like to see some of that extended. People use that quite a bit. Every time I drive there, almost I'm seeing people walking their dogs or walking themselves on there, riding a bike on it. I think that's important. It gets used a lot, so I think that's an important thing. And other than that, I'm waiting to hear from the other departments and the parks and such, and then get with the council to see how we're going to split this up.
Is this working? Yes.
You've got to switch on top.
There you go.
Does that work? Sure does. So this is just...
This is just priorities? Is that,
Just your thoughts on the budget?
Yeah,
whatever,
sure.
Whatever random
So
thing you want to say.
I apologize for being late. I was on a call with my boss, so I couldn't end it early. I think what I'm looking at in the budget, should I try it again? Testing. Yeah, sure. Can everybody hear me? Is it okay?
We can hear you back here.
Huh? Okay. If you can, oh yeah, for that, I forgot.
All right, is that better?
Yeah.
This year I feel is a little different than the last couple budgets.
that this will be the third one I've been through, the second biennium, third budget. It seemed like in years past there was a little more surplus that we had to deal with. This year I'm not feeling that. I think Angie is forecasting that we're going to probably end the year with about a 2.75 general fund, and our financial goal is 2.5 to leave it there. At some point, depending on how the city goes, if it goes well, that general fund balance, $2.5 million, if there's something goes south in a big way, is that what, maybe 6 months maybe? So they say to have at least a year, you want to have $6 to $8 million in that fund. Is that ever going to happen? Probably not. But as much as we can grow that, I think 2.5 is a reasonable place right now. So when we're looking at the budget, then what are the priorities and what do we need to take care of? And obviously, raising taxes is always not a good thing to do. Sometimes a necessary thing, and it depends on what the citizens want and the services that the citizens want. I have the example of last week I had a little fire at my resort, which could have been pretty bad. Luckily it wasn't. The ladder truck showed up, full-on ladder truck, because it was smoke in the building at the resort, and 2 firemen got out. So not sure what 2 firefighters could do with a ladder truck, but that was concerning. And it wasn't because, it was because the other 4 were on other calls, and about a half an hour later there were 5, 6 people there, so it helped. But that first half hour, 40 minutes is pretty critical if you've got a big fire. So that's something we're going to have to address, and it's just a matter of what does that mean, and what is it, what level of service does the citizens want? So I'm definitely open to hearing what that is, but I think that's a pretty critical issue right now as the city grows, as things happen. Fire and safety is always a big deal. Obviously the police station, I was really cool. I highly encourage anybody to take the tours that Nikki has set up and go in there and see, oh my gosh, are they actually functioning out of this building? The police server, the main server for what they have, is in a little closet that's not climate controlled with a water heater in it and a rotten floor. It's not okay. You can't function out of that building. There's just no way. It's what they do out of that building, and it's not into compliance with the new laws that are coming in. So I think that that's a pretty critical thing. And when I don't know if they've already addressed this, but in doing the police station, we paid for the sewer plant, which took $1.11 off of our property taxes. The $12 million will put 56 cents back on. Yeah, it's nice to be able to get our property taxes cut. It's also nice to be able to take care of the services that we need, and those 2 are pretty critical to the city, is fire and safety. I'm pretty much in agreement with most everything that Frank said. Fresh waterways, that's been a priority of mine for quite a while, and we're actually taking care of it. The IAVMP, which is the Aquatic Vegetation Master Plan, is being done right now. That was $68,000 that we approved in the last budget, and that's going to tell us what weeds and aquatic. They've done the chemical spraying, and at the end of next month they're going to be doing the mechanical harvesting, but it's a bigger deal, and so we did put $165,000 aside for both a fresh waterways master plan and a stormwater master plan, and you have to have those. A lot of people say that's a lot of money for a consultant, but what some people don't understand is you can't go out for grants if you don't have the master plan. That's done by a professional that knows what they're doing, and if you have those master plans, then it's a lot easier to go after grants. And usually those grants will more than pay for the master plan, especially when it comes to our storms and fresh waterways. And I'm pretty confident that we can actually start taking care of some things. Having those 2 plans, it's going to be a year to get those done. But once they're done, the city can step back and go, okay, what's there? What is it? What do we have to take care of? How do we have to take care of it? It's a mess. The fresh waterways were a swamp that wants to go back to a swamp. And how many culverts from the streets and stuff do we have going into our fresh waterways that's just dumping a bunch of stuff in there? And the algae and everything is coming from phosphorus, which is dead plants and dead stuff laying in the bottom of the canals that just, eats up all the oxygen and creates these algae blooms, and it's getting worse and worse every year. So what do we do to fix that? We have to do something, or they're just going to be swamps again. As far as the ARPA funds go, what I would like to see done with the ARPA funds, which is about 1.8 million, I think we have total. And some people have said we should use those maybe to, fund EMS so we don't have to, raise rates or something like that. I don't think that that's a good idea because if you're using a one-time deal funding source, what happens if you hire 2 firefighters for that funding source, and a year and a half down the road, it's gone, and you're going to have to do something with that funding source. I think ARPA funds are really good to be used for really big things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. The Oyhut ditch is a big one. I mean, I'd definitely like to put as much money as we can to the Oyhut ditch because that's going to be a very expensive project, and it will fix a lot of woes. If we can get the parking, that will help us do, parking on Point, the new sidewalks and stuff on Point Brown. Until we deal with the parking on the street on Point Brown, it's going to be real hard to put sidewalks there. Helping the parks out, our parks are hurt units, So there's a lot of people that have, we're going to be hearing from all of them on Monday night, all of the departments and what they're asking for, whether it's ARPA or budget things. One of the departments, I think, in the city that is hurting more than others is Public Works. They are, when they've got I was actually out at Damon Beach one day, and I don't know, how many of you have seen our grader out doing the beach accesses, grading the beach accesses? 1972. They bought that thing used years and years ago, and they welded together, they put parts. I was up at Damon, and I saw the county's 6-wheel, probably $500,000 grader, and I just went, oh my gosh, what the heck? Why can't we have that? Not that we want to get a $500,000, but I mean, they are definitely, their mowers are breaking down. Everybody complaining about roads aren't getting mowed and stuff. It's because the mowers have broken down. They ordered one over a year ago and they haven't got it yet. John Deere told them if you ordered a lawnmower right now, you'll get it at the end of next summer. I mean, we're just in a strange place, so, and they're working with 5 people taking care of this whole city, which is the roads, there's a lot, all the ditches, everything. These guys are taking care of the culverts, all this stuff. I'd like to see 2 people put into Public Works that you could use year-round. Because if you put them in the waterways, the problem with that is I don't know that you have year-round work with them. But if you put them into Public Works and let Public Works help the waterways, that could be a win-win that way too if we put that money that way. And help Public Works out with some staffing and a little better equipment. They could be a lot more efficient in what they did if they had the equipment to do the job. So just what I think.
Yeah.
They do. Oh, yeah. I'm all about that.
Do you want me to do that one, or do you want to do this? How's that? I was confused by traffic control because I was like, this is something with the FAA I didn't realize. You had so many questions. Go ahead. Here, Michael.
So in regards to the waterways, a couple things I want to say about that. One is that I'm really happy we're going to the outside to hire a professional company to come in and do a proper study and tell us what all the problems are and what all the fixes are. We're going to be way ahead of the game by hiring this company to do that. I got a neighbor, and this neighbor has the biggest, greenest plants I've ever seen anywhere in my whole entire life. And they flower, and they're just absolutely gorgeous. And I went over and talked to her. I go, what is your secret? How do you make these plants grow this way? Oh, I take water out of the waterway. I go, well, why do you do that? Because the waterway is full of fertilizer, and that's why my plants look like this. And she's serious. She goes out. I've seen her out there with her bucket, and she pulls water out of the waterways to water her plants with, and they are like on steroids. I've never seen such nice looking plants. So I have a concern, and that's why I'm really looking forward to this study, is what they're going to tell us is the condition of those waterways, because I think they're a lot worse than what we're thinking. And I've got some rental houses around me, and they came by and sprayed, And about an hour after they were done spraying, I saw one of the rental houses, and they had their kids out there in the channel swimming. And I go, hey, lady, they just got through spraying out there. I don't think you want to have your kids swimming in that. Oh, they did? She called her kids in. They went back in the house. So I have a concern when we're doing stuff like that. I don't think we're getting the word out and giving people proper warnings when that spraying's going on. I wouldn't let my dog out there, let alone have the renter lady have her kids out there. So that's all I got to say about that.
Questions?
I had to go to my neighbor's dock. He had 2 of these flyers on his dock, and I never got anything. They said they were going to put it, because I talked to Douglas. He said he was going to put some in the mailbox. None of us got it in the mailbox. A couple of them had, whoever had docks, had those flyers posted on the docks. And we didn't have only one, they had 2. So, I think they should let everybody know about this, not just a few. And that's a good idea, Mike. Maybe I should go and grab some water and water my lawn.
It'll make your plants grow.
I have a comment about that.
So at the Fresh Waterways Advisory Board on Monday, they were talking about this very thing. I know you were there talking about it, and I do think the contractor didn't do a great job in putting the flyers out that they did. But there was the conversation that Robert Lund brought up about signing and they have this in out at Friends Landing and stuff, and not Friends Landing, but out in Elma at the lake, where it is a sign that says, potential. It's a pretty benign sign, but it does warn that, there could be stuff in the water. And, the recommendation was to put these signs at all of our public areas, where our boat launch is, not on everybody's dock or anything like that. And because they did test the water and they had a couple samples that did show some toxicity, not above normal, but it was getting concerning. So the conversation happened, and I thought it was a really good idea. I know it kind of went back and forth about signs, not signs, and you don't want to really freak everybody out. But I think that would be a good thing, especially for public places, where people are launching their boats and stuff, that maybe you want to think about whether you want to swim in this water or not. So I'd be really in favor of that, and Robert did a really great job with that.
I'm just going to add to that. I was at the meeting too, and the thing that was really great about these signs is you could slide in different degrees of caution, so there's different warnings. If it was like completely stay out, they had that. If it's like use caution, or one that says you're fine. So I thought it's a good idea. You can leave the post in, the sign there, and you just change out the sign, the warnings on it. So.
Hi. About 5 or 6 years ago, Mayor wanted to do some development downtown. He was going to spend $12 to $14 million to do it. That was defeated by the citizens, I believe, or the city council voted not to. I believe the police station was in bad repair at that time, and yet it never came up on the former mayor's agenda to do that. Can you explain to me why now? And I agree, it'll never be cheaper than this time to do a new police station. I just don't understand why it wasn't addressed before this time. Thank you.
Frank's got the work
Well, I can't speak for the former mayor of why, because when I was running for council the first time that I ran, we took a tour, and at that time the police station used to flood in front of it, so it was like so it was in bad shape then. So I have no idea. It was always a priority. Now the sidewalks on Point Brown, I know the reason why she was moving for that, because we had a grant. I mean, there was money that was there, and so we applied for it and we got it. Now the problem that you have with police is right now there's police, when it comes to grants, there's no money out there because it's police are just not a priority from a political point of view. So there's more of a defunding of the police. So we've looked at every grant possible. Now the reason why we're bringing it forward now is, if you recall that the former mayor brought forward buying the movie theater at that time, and the council decided not to do that. And then we already had it, so we had a study. The mayor decided to look at the other 3 properties that we had and look at it, and then I became mayor. So that's what I inherited. So we already had the project. We're kind of walking down that road. I totally agree that we need to do something with the police station. And now we're on option 4 of where the location of the police station is. So I think the Point Brown project there was a grant that was available that was going to help pay for it, and then we as a council could just never come up with what the answer is. We went from meandering sidewalks to parking. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. So that's why it got there. And then the police station was on my agenda because it was there that I inherited. But we still need to do something. You have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I do. You say you went from multiple different plans, meandering sidewalks, whatever. The reason I opposed that project was I feel it was the people that own the property should pay for the improvement of their property. And I think everyone agrees that there's more sales downtown now than there were then, so not having those things doesn't seem to impact the tourist community.
Well, I guess right there that would be something that maybe you and I probably would disagree with. Because one of the easiest things for a mayor, for me to do, is just do nothing. Don't build anything, don't do sidewalks, just because I'm not going to irritate anybody, right? I mean, I'm not going to raise taxes, I'm going to be just there. But my view as being mayor is there's some projects and things that we need to do in Ocean Shores that we need to get it. So that's where I'm moving forward on. You say, and I agree in principle with your idea that the downtown business people should pay for that, but the problem is that you're probably not going to get it, because then you could use the argument, well, only the tourists should pay for it. And then, well, how do you charge the tourists to do that? It's just like the issues that we have of, if you live on the canal, should only the people that live on the canal pay for it? If you live on the beaches, should the people that live on the beaches only pay for the erosion? So, as mayor, I look at it's the whole big town, so trying to put it all together. Now, I'm not saying, you in this room will decide whether or not we move forward on the police station. 60% vote. So if you guys vote no, we have no police station. We don't move forward with the police station.
Okay, John, and I agree, and thank you for the answer. One of the ways I think that the sidewalk plan was defeated was we were never presented with really good plans. Do you have a plan that you can present for the police station?
Yeah. And so here, okay, so I've heard this. Okay, my number one view is we need to do something with the police station.
I agree.
Okay, so we need to do that. I've been presented multiple times of different alternatives to the police station as far as the build. We looked at modular. I sent my police chief down there to look at it and found that it's just not practical. Looked at multiple things. And then we have a conceptual plan as far as the police station, what it's going to look like. Now, other people go, I can't vote for it because I don't have a full architectural plan. I want to know how many different buildings, how many seats, all that type of stuff. But I would say that if we get ourselves into a point where we've already gone out for our architectural and then we don't pass it, there's wasted money on that. When you build if I was to buy a spec home, right, I get it as is. What we're really doing is a custom police station, because we're going to find as we build, or as a time that we finally get it, there's going to be things that we need to change. Before we make those decisions, the citizens are going to be involved. We're going to have the concept in there, But the next phase is going to be where we actually, if we get the funding, that we actually go through the architectural. Citizens will be consulted on it. You know, the number of the I on purpose went high as far as the request for what we're asking for, because I didn't want to have to let's build a $6 million police station, realize that I know going into it, like another city did, that they would never have the money to complete it, would have to come back and get more money. So our council voted any excess money that we have in that bond, that fund, will go back to paying down that debt. So, you know, we will give you the concept. We are going to have town hall meetings, or whatever we want to call them, to show you what the concept is. My police chief is already allowing to have tours of the police station. We'll have more conversations, but we're going to give you the concept, you know, but I'm not going to give you the exact square footage, because that's what design actually goes into. So that might not make you happy, but I don't want to get into a big argument on what color the police station is going to be, and then I'm going to vote no because it's the wrong color.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else before you go back to her? Just, okay.
Thank you. When you began talking about the police station, Councilmember Elderman brought up the modular, or whatever it's called, and the police chief said that that was not satisfactory. I seem to remember saying that when she visited, they weren't happy with it either. But I wonder if, Frank, you could speak a little bit more about it, because you were in favor of doing that. Would you still be? And if this bond fails, is that something we could push forward with at a lower cost?
Yes, it's definitely lower cost on that. The one at Woodland, which I asked for I did a public records request for the information on that. It was $3.1 million, and that was built, I believe, in 2016. It had additional things to it, like a meeting room for council meetings. They had council quarters in their office space or whatever for them to get together on that. So I know construction costs have gone up, but they haven't doubled. And so that's what I was looking at, to see if we can get something, because we need something for the police department. I know that. I've been there. I've walked through it. And so I was trying to find something that would be a little more easier for the public to swallow. And so that's why I went down that road to find that. I think, you know, Woodland's making it happen. I thought it would be a viable thing for us to look at.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question on the construction costs. I did, sorry, as I lose all my page. Because we don't have a whole lot of details, and I certainly understand what you're saying, Mayor, that you don't want to tell us it's going to be blue and then we vote no because we didn't want blue. But if we look at just the total square footage, and there are two numbers. One of them is 9,000 square feet, and that's for the building. But 14,000 plus is for the entire complex of the police station. So if you take $12 million, and I would argue that the bond is really 19 with interest, but if you take the 12 million and you do the division for 14,000 square feet, it comes out at $852 a square foot. And I have never seen a commercial building that would be built for that kind of money. So can you address that for us? And I think you're going to say you've asked, as you did earlier, you asked for more money just in case, but that number is still rather frightening.
Well, I don't have that in front of me, that I can't respond, but Scott will get the information, and we will post that online on what the numbers are.
I'm gonna, before I go to Pat, I actually want to give it to Chief Logan because, or do you want to go first and then Chief Logan? Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I can respond a little bit to that, because Rich and I looked at the square foot. It actually came out to about $700 a square foot. And when you look at a police, I mean, commercial buildings they're really different buildings. You know, I've got a commercial building and whatever that is, so you've got, you know, condos and full kitchens is going to cost more. A commercial building that's just a auto place, it's just big open buildings, not as many walls. When you look at a police station, there is a lot of regulations that go into what you can do. You have to have a hold-in cell, you have to have interview cell, you have to have cameras, you have to have locked doors, you have to have climate control, you have to have, the cost goes exponentially up when you're doing a police station over just a regular commercial building. But at the $712, I think it was, a square foot that we came up with, is a very reasonable price for the type of building that's being built. And also on the difference between a modular and a stick built, and I've heard this kind of thrown around that, you know, our our fire station is the Taj Mahal, and did we need such a nice, big, gorgeous police station? Well, you know what? And maybe that cost a little bit, but that was built well. It was designed well, and 60 years from now, that will still be a viable, good building. My philosophy always is spend the money on the front end so that 20 years down the road, you're not in the place we are now with a building that's falling apart. You know, you would be much better off taking a little bit more, doing a little bit better in the build side on the front end, and it will pay off hugely down the road, so you don't have to do this again in 30 years. So that's my take on a stick built over a modular.
All right, and before I go up there, I just want to turn it over to Chief Logan, because she actually went down and spoke to the people in Bill.
The $3.1 million that was on the modular building in Woodland, yes, it did include the council room, council chambers, but when you just visualize the size of it, the council room where they hold their council sessions is maybe half the size of this room. And they had a little meeting room where they go to do their executive sessions, where our council now has to go to a separate room to do it. They actually had a room separated out for that the police department has pretty much taken over. The council doesn't even use it anymore because the police department ran out of room in their section of it. So it's police department rooms now. And the building itself, you know, they would do things differently that's going to cost more money. And a big part of it was the insulation on the interior walls that they didn't have, so that, you know, conversations that you have in your office can be heard. I mean, just talking in normal tones can be heard in the next room right now. They did not have a sally port, where ours is kind of a carport right now. They had nothing. So when they bring prisoners in, you know, they're open to the elements. Anybody can see who we're taking in and out of our cars, type of thing. And so there was no privacy there. There was no protection from the elements. Where they have a lot of elements there, but they don't have what we have here, especially in the winter months, with the storms and such that we have through here. So there was a lot of different things. I mean, and they outgrew their department as soon as they moved in. And what they have for a meeting room and training room, they can't even have their entire department in there because it's too small. They actually have to go over to the council chambers to have their meetings because it's too small for all of them in there to do any of their trainings. So there's a lot of things with it that would add to their costs now. So the $3.1 million that it cost them to build 8 years ago, if they built it to what they need now, would be a lot more. And they're definitely a smaller place than we are to begin with. But what they have right now, they've outgrown. They cannot use it efficiently. They're pretty much, other than the fact that our building is old and, you know, needs all the little repairs to it. It's like putting Band-Aids on everything. The outgrowing part of it that we're experiencing now with our building, they are already experiencing after 8 years. And pretty much as soon as they moved in, according to what I heard from them.
So this is more to be about the budget and the the police station, obviously we need to have much more discussion, and that we should. But this probably wouldn't, I guess we would need to schedule another meeting to talk about the police station, because I don't want to get into, it's a campaign, I mean, I just don't want to get us off track with it. So if you have questions about the police station, go ahead and submit them to us, and we'll get you the answers. But I don't want to have this be a police station debate, because it's not in the budget. Because ultimately, it's going to be the citizens are going to decide whether or not we're going to have a police station or not with it. So,
right, that's a good point. It's a bond issue and not a budget issue. But Pat, did you?
Yeah, this one's for you, Scott. I just wanted to vocalize this so we understand between the High Dunes Trail and the evacuation tower, we're paying $1 million, right? No cash.
Very close.
All right.
Very close.
So, okay.
Yeah.
well, in
Those projects, that's correct.
but right now, because
yes.
we're still in the discussion on the tsunami tower.
On the tsunami tower, that's right. So right now, as it's obligated, they may know, meaning they may give us more money.
Will ours
FEMA.
ever go up?
Our portion, we are not negotiating at our point to have our portion go up. We are negotiating to have FEMA give us more money, which they may very well do. But we can't say that now. So our portion would go down. Well, either would go down or would stay the same, because the cost may go up. Our portion right now for both those projects is yours marked at about $1 million. That's correct.
$1 million.
But it's our, but it's
And on top of that, the lawsuit payouts add another $750,000.
Yeah, that's a different.
But, and just FYI, that money is already in the budget. It's not money we have to go find or get. It's already put away. But it is taxpayer money, yes. But it's not extra money we have to go
It's
find.
money we can use for these priorities,
Yeah.
and not. Okay.
Anyone else? I saw. Well, wait. Lillian had a hand up. I will come back to you. I promise. But Lillian, did you still want to ask something or no?
On budget.
Budget. Yes.
I hear us starting to talk again about, let's look at existing projects, and my priority for our budget is to finish the projects that have already been initiated and we've already spent money on. We have a bad habit of second guessing as soon as things get into production. As a community, we start second guessing it, and as a result, it ends up costing us more, or we have throwaway money. I would say my number one priority would be to, number one, take care of all the staffing needs and fire and health and the things that are important to every single person here. And as we can broach other projects, we're looking at a 2-year forecast here. So I think it's important that we look at what could be initiated over the next 2 years and not waste money on things that are either way out in the future or we don't have the data on yet. Okay, I won't say what else I was going to say.
I believe last council meeting it was brought up about replacing or actually refurbishing the skate park ramps in our skate park. It was brought before council and they were suggesting that they talked to John Wagner. Does you recall that during the meeting? Well, I'm the head person in that project and I'm the one that has all the knowledge and all the costs. So I'm going to be spearheading that, but I wanted you to know that John doesn't really have any beyond, what I will give him. So we're going to work together on this because if he did when he built the park. But my second question is this new workboat for the Waterways for $70,000. Where is that coming from and what boat are we talking about? It's right here on this.
Yeah, I talked to the Fresh Waterways. They have 2 boats, so I didn't hear a huge concern about that. So hopefully Monday. But when I talked to Steve, he didn't know much about it. So it was with the corporation, I think, more than the Fresh Waterways. So I'm not sure what their need is for a boat, but it didn't seem huge right at the moment. So
I'm referring to that because I built both of those boats and I worked on both of them, and I was wondering what the new boat configuration would be because the new boat should be owned by the city. And I feel that the Fresh Waterways Corporation have been carrying the city all these years. And you're relying on them to clear trees and the fish hook and such. Because we have no one, like Frank is mentioning, that can go out and do that work with the city. So I believe that we need to focus on getting people from the city to do this work on the freshwater shoreline maintenance, which is still not completed from last year as a result of last year's storm. We've got 2 major trees in the south end of the west part of Duck Lake that are still laying out in the water. So you're relying on the Fresh Waterways Corporation to do this, and that's got to be the city's job.
Do you guys want to respond to that, or no?
You've been to all the meetings. You've heard Marshall and Robert talk about this quite a bit. They have been doing what they can to take care of it, but it is a staffing issue and things like that. So I agree. It just takes more people. So if we hire more people, I'm all for that.
All right, I have a question on budget and expense. I may have 2 questions depending on the answer. Is it true that the city or the mayor can expend up to $50,000 on an item without it having to be approved or cleared by the council, or actually in the budget? Is there a limit on the amount of money that can go out without final approval?
Yes.
And what is that limit?
I think 50,000.
All right, my comment would be...
If I'm wrong, we'll make sure that we get that right number.
30. Is it 50? It is 50,000?
Well, we're going to verify that, but yeah, there's an amount that I can sign off without council approval.
I'll be honest, you've got 3 staff people who all have slightly different numbers in their head, and it may be because it's changed the discretionary amount. I can't remember. Let's get Angie an official answer to that question.
All right. My other question would be then, if indeed it's 40 to 50,000, is there a column on the expenditures that says 40,000 spent for this, 22 for this, without, or does it just go into a blank area that we don't know what it's for?
No, it goes under the budget. That if we were going to exceed a category because of whatever the budget is, that I would have to go to the council because that I've exceeded it. But there's a lot of bills that come in that it may be for consulting, that it's in the budget, and I have authority. I don't have to go to council approval to say that I need a $15,000 approval for a consultant that works with us for the Oyhut ditch.
Because it's already a column item in there,
Yeah.
say for 70,000, but you know it's going to be 22, so you can remove 22 of that.
Right.
And,
Right.
and
As long as if it's in the budget, if I'm going to exceed the budget, even though I have signing authority, I have to go back to the council. Because I need to change the budget.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
But like the sheriff's department, that would be $75,000 for those guys.
Yeah.
It seems as though, listening to all the conversation that's going on up there, that you guys made up your mind that we are going to have a stick building, or is the modular still questionable?
Well, I guess we have not gone 100% because we haven't gone into a design phase of what that's going to be. But the drawings that we have and what the assumption is stick built, yes.
Would you also look at the possibility down the road, say maybe 5 years from now, for potential for growth, and you can just add on without having to tear it down and build a new station? Room for growth.
Well, I would tell you that I am open to all different opportunities presented, and that I have investigated anything that has been brought to it. My concern that I have is that, number one, we have growth issues already. I mean, what we're proposing, or the proposal that we have in front of us, gives us what we have now plus what we need. And there's a conversation we've been having with the sheriff's department of possibly having them to help defray some of the costs of having a satellite office or whatever you call it. But my concern is what happens in Ocean Shores is that we end up not overthinking, but we walk through and we have so many different options of what to do it that we end up never doing anything. You know, so I am open to have any discussion of if it makes sense, but again, something has to be brought forward for us to have that conversation. So we're not locked in because we haven't gone to design phase. But right now, the direction that I think that we're going is the stick build that we have presented to the council, and it's also on our website.
Would it be possible for you to add a modular to the stick building once you get the stick building put up?
We weren't doing this. Yeah.
Well, I guess I should have stopped.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to turn this over to the city clerk because there's a reason we have different numbers. Now I know what it is.
Right.
So we all yell 30 or 50, and it's because for some things it's 50 and some things it's 30. So if anybody's interested in the full purchasing policy and the roles of the council and the mayor, it is chapter 3.20 of the Ocean Shores Municipal Code.
Thank you. Regarding the budget here, on the preliminary design report for the City Hall General Fund, $80,000 complete. Does that mean that we paid the company $80,000? That's on the back page here. First, administrative police building preliminary design report.
Oh.
Yeah, that can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably, is that both our KMD studies or just the one? Because I think that's both of them put together.
That's both.
It's both. So that was the initial, when we considered purchasing the movie theater, I'll just answer this, sorry. When we considered purchasing the movie theater, we had them do a retrofit to see what it would look like and could we make it into a police station. It turns out we could, and it would have cost about $8.7 million to do it. And council at the time voted it down because they thought that price was too high. And then, because of what had happened at Montesano, they wanted to build a new police station from scratch. The former mayor Dingler instructed me, can we find out what it would cost now to build a police station to our needs for what we wanted from scratch? And that's why the new one came back at about, if we built it where on a lot that has no obstructions, no hindrances, and we don't have to build it for 2 stories, it would come out about $10.5 million. So that's what we have it now. But that study was for both of those projects. Susan?
Thank you. So this is budget related. It's a question that I have for Eric and Frank. At the council meeting that I watched, it was regarding waiving a second reading. And Council Member Rich Hartman said something to the effect of, if we are raising taxes, then we should always have a second reading. But if we're not waiving taxes, as was the case with the ballot measure for the municipal bond, we don't have to worry about that because the citizens will be taxing themselves. So my question to you is, why does it not seem necessary to have both those second readings? We as citizens want to hear what you have to say during a first reading to give us an opportunity to come back at that second reading. But too often now we see that happening. Please answer why you think one way or the other. Thank you.
I'm the one who actually made that motion and made the motion to waive the second reading. I think Frank didn't like that idea, but it was directly related to the bond issue because from my perspective, the citizens are going to decide it. You know, it wasn't needed to have a second reading because it wasn't going to change anything. Everything was the same, and it's going to a vote, and so that's why I didn't feel it needed the second reading at that time, since you all are going to decide on if it happens or not. Because we didn't raise taxes at that. It wasn't a financial decision. It wasn't anything. It was the motion was just to put the bond on the ballot in November. So it had nothing to do with raising money, finances, or anything like that. It had to do with putting it on the ballot. And there was a bit of a time limit. I mean, we probably had enough time, but that's why I did it.
Well, like Eric said, I was in favor of doing both readings. The council had agreed to approach that way with all the different items that came in front of us to do a second reading. As you know, I just think it gives people time to see if they want to make a comment on it. Sometimes these things pop up and people don't realize they're coming onto the agenda, and unless it's an emergency, which we haven't had other than the hot water tank that blew up here. But so Eric and I disagree on that, but I'd like to see a second reading on everything. I don't think we need to be in that big a hurry.
Thank you. Okay. Your hand went up?
Yeah. I've got a question here because on the 2021 to 2022 budget, we gave funds to the Coastal Interpretive Center for 120 grand. They're a standalone operation. They charge admission. Is this going to be a priority? Just asking.
They're coming on Monday to present, and they've talked about it. I mean, I personally, I think the Coastal Interpretive Center, especially where they're at right now, you know, what they did during the shutdown with COVID and the remodel that they did, and in the environment that everybody's in, not just, you want me to hold that so you don't have to stand? Volunteers are extremely hard to get. I mean, most organizations are having a tough time getting quality volunteers that are younger. There's still some elderly people. So if you go and they have a new director there, who Barb is pretty amazing. She's got quite a few degrees. They actually just changed it into a museum. So I support it. I don't. They need to seed money, so this is not something I see long term that the city should just keep funding and funding and funding. But as a nonprofit, and the economic impact that they have to the city is pretty huge. Over 65-70% of their people come off of the I-5 corridor, and it's a pretty amazing thing. It's I would hate to see the city lose it. I think that would be worse for it to shut down. Than to continue to fund them for a little while longer till they can fund themselves. So right now, and if you go and talk to them, I would highly recommend you go and talk to them before you say, this isn't something I would support. You should talk to Barb and Nancy and just hear what they have to say.
Yeah, if there's no one else.
So, I
got to give you the mic so they can record it.
Oh, okay. So you're really not soliciting our opinions because you've already made up your minds. So I like the Coastal Interpretive Center, but they're standalone now. We gave them enough money. This 120 grand can go to projects that benefit the citizens locally.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else? No, Jeannie? Get my steps in this way.
Thank you. I noticed that at Chinook Park, the fishing dock is being encroached upon by the water hemlock, which is poisonous. And there are branches of it sticking out beyond the barricade or the protective barricade that keeps people from falling into the lake. And there's a lot of kids that were in that area picnicking with their families when I was there last. And I thought to myself that the city really should, or volunteers are going to help maintain the parks if we don't have enough people, should really address that. And it may be that way elsewhere, but definitely at Chinook Park.
Michael?
So as long as we're talking about seed money, if we can give seed money out, I see no problem with finding a way to help out a medical center, giving them some seed money to help pay for getting doctors and nurses in there to work. And that's a huge benefit, not just to the people that are living here, but to all the tourists. That is where I can see seed money going and seed money really helping out.
Susan?
Thank you. See you from the front this time. It has nothing to do with the budget, I don't think, at the moment, but there are a number of citizens who have been voicing concern at Damon Point because the Quinault Nation has posted no trespassing signs. Apparently there have been a number of people who've been accessing Damon Point through the RV campground. Last year we had the issue that you couldn't turn to the right because it turns out that it's private property on that beach. You can't access Damon Point at anything other than low tide because of the rocks that are there. I'm wondering if you've heard anything on that yet, or if indeed there is anything that the city can do in terms of an easement or working with the tribe.
Yes, we had a conversation. The reason why those signs are up there was the Quinault's insurance company are concerned about the areas eroding and having issues. So they required the Quinaults to put those signs up. The whole purpose is not to keep people away from the erosion part of it. So that's what the signs are. You know, they had first of all, I talked to them about it would have been nice if we would have had a heads up that it was there, so we could have put the message out.
Sure.
But I know that I sent Scott down there and looked at it to see if there's a negative impact. And right now we do not believe that you still have the same access that we had before.
You just can't walk through the campground, but there is still on the upper embankment. There's still a path, and they have not blocked that yet. And that's what I was concerned of, that they blocked that upper path on the embankment. And to this point, they have not put up any signs there yet.
When you talk about the upper path, I'm not sure that I understand what you're saying.
So if you're going out to the left, obviously you're on the entranceway to Damon on the concrete, the black asphalt.
Yes.
There's a place around to the left where you're going to have to, I'd have to describe it, but...
You draw a picture?
Well, it's without going down to the beach level.
Okay.
You can still reach the other side of Damon's Point without going down to the beach level.
Going along the area where it's eroded.
No, that is all blocked off. It's the other side of it. But yeah, I walked it to make sure you could do it, and actually the city clerk went with me because we were just checking for general signage issues. And then after that, I know that the mayor called the Quinault, and they had actually a very productive conversation, and they've actually agreed to meet with us on a monthly basis now, which we have not had forever. So, there's when you talk about like seed money for healthcare, the one place we're going to get sustainable healthcare possibly in the Ocean Shores area is from the Quinault Nation. That's been the model, and so that door is opened up for us to at least start that. And Mayor, I don't know if you want to talk about the event that we're going to be going to when OK Maverick dinner.
Well, again, I don't want to
take away from the budget priorities thing.
Well, but we do have the Quinaults are going to be opening at the end of the month their behavioral health center, which we've been invited, and then we've got a standing monthly meetings with the Quinaults. Again, the conversation isn't anything in particular, but to open up the dialogue of what could possibly be done. But also the assurance that in the future, if they're going to do additional work down in the marina, they would give us a heads up of what's coming up. So we could do that.
May I follow up on that, Scott? I know you'd be kind enough to walk over there with me, but I wonder when you do your posting on Facebook and you do an update on that, you could maybe draw a map or make it more understandable so that people do know where they can go and not go, because there is a lot of confusion right now as to what they can do. And I know the area well, and I'm not sure that I quite understand it either as to where it's...
Okay. We can try. Sometimes I'm not great on Facebook as far as getting the diagrams, but we'll try. So we'll try to get a little bit more detail. I'm probably going to reach back out. So I know that it seems like we're getting to the end of the budget. So if we could just wrap up, if you got further questions about the budget.
Lillian, budget question?
I was just going to ask what you had heard today in terms of budget priorities. I've heard about a lot of other things and concerns, but what have you heard about people's priorities?
I've got one.
Fire, police, and waterways seem to be, I mean, waterways is one of the biggest things I hear more than anything right now.
I agree with that. Waterways is the most important thing for our budget.
And what I got is that we need to have another big meeting about the police station. So I've got that, then I've got fresh waterways. Top priority seems to be overall about it, and looking at some staffing needs, and then the concern of not raising taxes.
And speaking of fresh waterways, we have a new public works director that will be starting on Monday. So that will help us a great deal at the city, because Robert Lund, our city engineer, has been kind of doing two jobs at once. So a lot of credit to him.
I thought that was your job. Is that public works was your job?
I'm a city engineer.
So my question is about the budget. I mean, it's pretty obvious to most people that this country is headed for some possible turbulent times financially. Just today they announced that home sales 18 months ago were completed in less than 7 days and at a premium above asking price. As of the end of June, that is now at 27 days with an average 7.5% price reduction by the seller. So it's a pretty dramatic turnaround, and that, if you watch financial markets much, that's a real indicator that our recession or not recession, depending on who you listen to, is deepening. And so does that come into play in your guys' decision? Because quite likely the money that we're seeing today, we're not going to see again tomorrow. And the second part of that question, if I may be a pain, sorry, is it a normal course of business for the city? We just for the sake of our state, you get $10 million in tax revenue from the state. And obviously you have fixed costs, salaries, and that thing you have to pay. What's left after your fixed cost? Is there a formula where the city says we need to take 5%, 7%, 10% of this money that's left and put that into a rainy day account that can't be touched except for an emergency? Is there such a thing? Because I've never heard of it, so it doesn't mean it's not there. It just means I haven't heard of it. So that's my second part of the question.
So for the possible recession, or whatever you want to call it, yes, that's what our financial forecast. So that's just the first phase that we've done. So when we looked at our financial revenue coming in, that number one, most of our revenue actually comes off of property taxes. So property taxes, with the recession, if you have a slowdown on houses, it's not really going to make a big difference, because the amount that you can raise property taxes is limited by law, and then the assessor really doesn't do a good job of updating those revenues on, within a 2-year period. So we're not really seeing, in that projection, we're not seeing a big difference, because we have the advantage of houses that have been built from unimproved lots, so that's going to be there. What we think that is where the impact's going to be is going to be in sales tax and hotel taxes. Those are the two big, and then the money that we also get from sales of homes. But so that's where we took the negative in. So we built in a pretty negative forecast going in, probably one of the most conservative ones that we've had in a while as far as revenue projections. So that's what we built in. Now the real key, of course, like anything, is that how you can really make a big difference is whatever the budget is. So like if you don't do a lot of people ads, because that's one of the big costs for the city, and you work on efficiencies within it, then you can cut costs, then we'll probably be okay. So we're looking at that. Now to the rainy day fund, when I was first became the council, there was no rainy day fund. So the council put in financial principles, and it's set up to be X amount of money that we put into basically a rainy day fund. So that's set aside. And then we also there's a council discretionary fund that also was set aside. So with that, the council, since we put that in there, increased that number, and it has basically increased it with every budget. Now it's going to be up to the council to decide whether or not that's a priority for them to continue on. But I do agree that there should be money set aside, so in case you have an emergency, and that you don't tap that unless it is an emergency. But some cities do that. We don't have a percentage that we put aside, but the council could always make that decision.
We just raised it from 2 to 2.5 just last year.
But you just said yourself that it's not enough, so.
Yeah, no, but we're doing what we can.
I'm just saying, so.
Yeah, it's not enough, but
it's
better than what it used to be. So, yeah, so we've been very aggressive at it. Yeah.
Well, that continues.
One more?
Yeah.
Thank you. There was concern from citizens that as you go into labor negotiations, that the staff will be asking for an increase in their salaries. You and I had a conversation, you were explaining there was a cap. Can you explain that a little more to everybody?
Okay, well, there's two different things that we were talking about.
Yeah.
There is a cap that our current contracts, that they are limited, it depends on what it is, it's like 2 to 3% is the maximum they can get, that's built in. Then our non-union staff, that they get pay increases, but they get as an average of whatever the other unions are. So we're not going to see an 8% increase. Now, with that being said, that we will be going into labor negotiations with the fire union. It doesn't mean that they can't ask for whatever increase they want to have. That's part of the negotiation with it. But right now, our current contracts, there's a limit of what it can go up.
Thank you.
Okay, if we don't have anything else, I appreciate you guys coming, and I can guarantee you that we'll have more discussion about the police station. Yes?
And one more comment we make about...
Okay, let me get it just so it's on the... I can see it.
Negotiations with the fire department, with the union. In the contract, there is no number that shows the amount of manpower that's working any one scheduled shift. Contract only shows the number of personnel that are hired. So we need to have a number that's on staff per shift to know what that is, so the public can understand that. Because they're not aware that when they're busy transporting out of town, that we're short, we're understaffed. So we need to be able to bring that, so that's brought forward. The contract does not show that.
No, not what he's saying. He's saying how many X amount of people need to have on staff, per shift. But again, I'm sure that we will have plenty of things to talk about with the contract coming up. With it. And just to let you know that as we go into the contract, that I made the decision as mayor that we've hired a professional negotiator to do that, and it just because I personally don't feel that I know all the rules on negotiation, and I really do believe that bringing outside help will help us just probably have a better relationship of getting it done. So that's kind of where we're headed. All right, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.